Hello, hello. I am Luz. It's nice to meet you all, probably for the first time. So, what are we doing here? Well, I decided to do a thing, which is something that I'm starting to do more and more often nowadays. I've decided that I want to play Little Nightmares. The adorable little horror game that I've never played before, despite loving everything I've ever seen about the game. I've never actually played it. And the thing is, Little Nightmares isn't a new thing. The second game has already come out, and at the time I wrote this script, which was around a year ago, Little Nightmares 3 has been announced. So I am very late for the party. Nonetheless, I want to play the game. The only issue is, well, one of the only issues is because you're going to find out there's a lot of issues that come up in this video. One of the issues is I tend to be a little bit extra. So I decided I don't just want to play Little Nightmares. I want to become the Little Nightmare. And how does one do that, you may ask? Well, you probably already know from the title, but I've decided to make a Little Nightmares inspired VTuber model. Now, the other issues that arise from my decision to do this is that I don't really have the time to make a model. I work and I'm also in college. Well, I was in college when I decided to do this. I also have very, very limited knowledge of rigging. I've only ever made 2 models in my life. One was a test model just to see if I could do it. The other was this little gal you're seeing on the screen, this tiny little lady who has very little rigging. So I know very basic rigging, and I have very little time to do this. So yes, I am not an experienced rigger, but from what I have learned, I love Live 2D, and I'm very determined to do this. Anyways, let's get right to it. Okay, first things first. We gotta get in the mood. So obviously, I set my Spotify playlist to Barbie songs, and that put me in the mood. That got me to it, and I will let you know that I specifically listened to Barbie throughout making this whole model. And I just think it makes the whole art process so much better and more successful. This is an art tip for you all. Listen to Barbie. Okay, next things next. I had to do some research about the style of Little Nightmares. I didn't want to exactly copy it. I mostly decided to take inspiration from the 2 main characters of the game, Mono and Six. I looked at their concept art and I looked at some fan art, and then I compiled my references using the godsend website that is Pinterest. Some other things about this model is I knew it still needed to be me. You're probably not getting a lot of personality from my little chibi gal up here, because I made her in a day. But I am working on a full VTuber model that I have been working on for months now. And I was mostly looking at that model for what my Little Nightmare would be like. And it came down to 2 things that really encompass my VTuber model, which was Blue and Ctuber. Okay, I know I do not have any C themes on this little gal up on the screen, but my actual concepts for my full model have a lot of water-based things, a lot of fishy magabers, mathenies, I don't know. I like fish, and blue is my favorite color. That's basically all it comes down to. That's all to say, I got to sketching. My first idea that I came up with was the idea that I could have an aquatic creature as a hat. Mono and Six both wear hats covering some of their face, obscuring it a bit, and I knew I wanted to keep with that theme. I thought that was a very big part of these characters, so I needed something that was not only a hat, but covered my face a little bit. And I immediately went to put a fish on my head. That's just what I did. So I started doing some sketches where I had a jellyfish as a hat. And I continued to sketch that out further, but it was not looking as good as I wanted. It felt very meh, just not very interesting. So I went back to the drawing board and I started to think why these designs aren't working for me and why they didn't really feel like they could fit into the game. And I came to the conclusion that the thing about the little guys from Little Nightmares is it really feels as though they are just wearing whatever they could find. Like, it's almost as if they came across a pile of trash and they went, this is what I got to work with. This is all I have to make an outfit from. And they did that. They put the trash on their bodies, and that's their clothes. So I ran with that. That's where I went with my idea. What would my little gal look like if she was wearing trash? Yeah. So my first idea that came out of this was, well, what if she was wearing a cardboard box as a hat that was shaped in the way a fish would be? I was kind of thinking about you know those cat toys that are just made out of cardboard and they put them in any shape possible? I was thinking of that, like a fish. A fish cardboard box on my head. That's the idea. And I was actually really liking the way this was looking. It was finally starting to really fit the style and just be a more interesting character design. So I decided to sketch one more explorative sketch after that. And my next idea was, well, what if I had a can of seafood as a hat? I then proceeded to color these two sketches, and it was finally time to decide what I would be working with. And in the end, I chose. In the end, I chose. Drum roll, please. But that's it. That's my drum roll. I chose the can. Ba 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 woo. I really liked the idea of animating tentacles. As weird as that sounds, it's just something I've never done before, and I thought would be fun. So I took that idea and went ahead to finalize the pose and proportions, and with this, we are ready to draw our final model. Kind of, because I had a few more things to do before I could actually finish drawing my model, which leads us to the next part of this. It's time to get to the actual rigging. Although I wasn't about to just jump into drawing my final model at this point, because I knew the hardest thing to rig for me would be the can itself. I wanted to get a lot of movement on said can, and I'd never rigged just a shape before. So there was things I was going to have to figure out for this. And I'd much rather do some tests before I finish everything and then realize it doesn't work once I bring it into live 2D. My first test was a failure, obviously. Sadly, I did not get it right the first time. The one thing that I did get right is I knew for the can opening where my face would be coming out of, I would need a reverse clipping mask. Rather than drawing the actual opening on the can itself, I separated it to a line for the can opening and a clipping mask to cut out from the whole can. The next issue I found were the can rims. I found the rims were really vital for making my face move, and I realized I had drawn them wrong. I drew them already curved, which in my final version I would need to draw them straight and then curve them with a deformer. If you don't know, it's just much easier to take something in a neutral pose and deform it to the shape you want than it is to already start in the shape you want. So I knew I'd have to fix that for my next version. The second mistake I made was the can lid. I drew a rim for the front of the can, but not for the back of the can, and it just made the top look very, very bad, and it was hard to rig it in a way that it was looking good. My final realization for this first test was that I had not actually considered how my eyes would open and close, which is vital because the thing people are looking at on a VTuber model is the face. So no matter what, you have to find a way to show expression, which would mean I would need to have a way for my eyes to blink. I ended up just for this test rigging the holes themselves, opening and closing, which makes absolutely no sense and does not look good. It was time for test 2. I went and fixed all my aforementioned issues. I also realized from my first test that I did not like the line style I was using. It was far too clean and just it didn't look that great in a Little Nightmares setting. The thing about Little Nightmares that I noticed is that it looks, how do I say, crusty? It looks grimy and dirty, so clean lines do not match the style of the game. So I changed my style. I made it much more sketchy, and I found that this looked a lot better, and it also just worked better for rigging. I don't know why. It just did. I also went ahead and added eyelids to my eyes within the bucket. I'm going to keep calling it a bucket probably throughout this. It's a can. I just named everything bucket for some reason while I was doing all this, which makes no sense because it's so much harder to write over and over again than can is. But anyway, I'm going to get them mixed up. It's supposed to be a can. And thus, test 2 was done. Was not perfect, but it was much closer to what I wanted, and I was finally ready to work on my final model. I set up everything in Live 2D. Also, I will not have very many tips for you because I'm a novice, but this is a pro tip for rigging that I suggest everyone do. When you start rigging, take your Barbie playlist and move it to High School Musical. Don't ask me why, but High School Musical is just a better mood for rigging, and it really helps, and it makes your model look super professional. I don't know why. That's just the rules. Listen to High School Musical when you're rigging. Okay, now that that's done, it was time to make the mesh for my model. I was on a time crunch, so I mostly just auto-meshed it and fixed it when I needed to, which made it go much faster. Also, this is an actual tip I will tell you. I added a random just square shape that I called clipping layer, and it was just an extra clipping layer in case I needed it somewhere that I hadn't thought about. And this did save my life. I really like this. I would suggest any of your models just add a random clipping layer just in case you need it. You probably will need it. Clipping layers save lives. Because I'd already done this, I already tested it twice, there really wasn't that many hiccups in the road. That's not the same. Oh well, there wasn't that many challenges with the head shapes. And it was a lot of fun because I'd already prepared for this. It was time for the eyes though. And I didn't say this earlier, but I decided for the eyes I didn't want them just black, but I also didn't want to make them overly detailed because you're looking into a bucket. I ended up just adding like this impression of a pupil and a gradient, black to blue gradient, so that when I moved my eyes around, you could still see them moving. And this is really important because with a VTuber model, people are looking at your face and they're looking for expression. So you want them to be able to see your eyes moving and see expression through your eyes, which is why I broke my previous saying when I said that I wasn't going to move the bucket holes. I actually did add eyes widening, and I did make the bucket holes themselves wide as I did that. It doesn't make sense because it's a can. I keep saying bucket, it's a can. It doesn't make sense, but I did it for expression. I also put my eyebrows on the outside of the can so you could still see them moving, and I think this was very vital just so you could actually see my expression. With my eyes done, it was time for mouth rigging. I won't spend much time on that because I did very, very basic mouth rigging. I basically had 3 forms, which was sad, happy, and very happy, because I mostly wanted my model to be happy. I'm a cheery person, it just makes sense. A part that I knew this was going to be hard, but I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, was adding the tentacles and the XYZ angles for the tentacles themselves. And here's where I messed up, and I didn't really have time to fix it, so I just accepted it. I did not break up my tentacles enough. I basically made it into 3 parts so that I could make them move. But I should have broken up the top part with the spots on it, the blue part, and the under part with like the suckers and everything. I should have broken that up because I really would have been able to make it look 3-dimensional and move more, but I didn't. So my tentacles ended up looking very flat, and I had a hard time just moving them in general. I was originally going to try and animate the tentacles moving, but I couldn't understand it when I was trying it. I'll try it again at some point. But I was on a time crunch. So I ended up just moving the tentacles and connecting them to the parameters for breathing. So when I'm supposed to be breathing, the tentacles will just be moving on their own. I also added a little bit of jiggle physics to them. So when I move, they still jiggle a bit. It's not the best, I will say this. I could do much better now. But it worked for what I wanted at the time. It results in something that looks very flat, and there's a lot of flaws for it. But I was proud of it at the time, and I still think it's cute. I do. Maybe one day I'll fix it, maybe I won't. We'll see. Okay, and with that, the rigging process was finally done. After everything, after rigging the head, the face, the body, we were done. I was so happy to finally just be done that process. It took me, I think, 3 whole days of rigging just to finish this model, which is a long time. A long time for the simple amount of rigging I did, which just shows you how much time it takes when you actually do complex, interesting rigging. But yeah, so I was done, and I was happy. Next, I set it up in Live 2D. Somehow, I still don't exactly understand setting up things in Live 2D. I'm gonna keep trying. I set it up to the best of my ability. And then, now, here we are. My little nightmare gal complete. Let's just take a moment. And here she is. I finished! Yay! My model is done. She's fully rigged. Basic fully rigging, but fully rigged nonetheless. I love how she turned out. I think she's super cute. She has so much personality, and I think she's a perfect little horror model for me to play like any horror games I want to play. Anyway, yeah, I love her. I'm super proud of doing this. I will say that I made this model probably around a year ago now, and I never got the chance to post it because of school. And I still haven't played the game yet. But one day I'll play the game and I will post it for you all so you can see her in action. If you'd like to see me make a new version of her, feel free to comment down below. Also, if you liked my video, if you'd like to see more art things, more VTuber making, because I am making my full model, and I'll actually be getting to the rig of it soon. Hopefully soon. Feel free to like, follow, subscribe. No, follow and subscribe are the same thing, right? Anyway, thank you for being here with me, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Liz, and this is my little tuna fish model. My little nightmare. Goodbye! Down, down, down. Oh my god, it's so cute when she goes,